Yo, what's going on guys, Dillbobs here, and welcome back to a brand new video here on the channel. Now, even though Marvel Rivals already has 44 heroes in the game, there is a vast arsenal of future heroes and villains that will be coming to Marvel Rivals that fans have been asking for, and Marvel Rivals themselves have actually been teasing so many characters from the Marvel Universe in the Marvel Rivals game already. So in this video, we're going to talk about a bunch of teased heroes that could be coming to Marvel Rivals in the future, with some teasers being blatantly obvious that they're set for release, and other more subtle teasers that might just be referenced Easter eggs. And let's start things off with Ghost Rider. I think Ghost Rider might be one of the most requested characters in Marvel Rivals since the game came out, and things are actually looking good for Ghost Rider, because on the recent Kunlun map that released in Season 4, there is a mural that can be seen showing the 1 million BC Avengers, including characters such as Firehair, the first avatar of the Phoenix, Odin Borson, the Allfather of Asgard, Agamotto, the first Sorcerer Supreme, Mosey, the first Black Panther chosen by Bast, and Starbrand, the planetary defense system, and finally Ghost, the first Ghost Rider and Spirit of Vengeance. And well, it turns out that Mosey, the first Black Panther, is already in the game, in the form of the Bast chosen skin for Black Panther, and this is likely going to be the case for the other members of the Million BC Avengers that we can see in this mural. Firehair as a Phoenix skin, Odin as a Thor skin, Agamotto for Strange, Starbrand for Hulk, but that leaves Ghost, who has no modern counterpart in Marvel Rivals at the moment, which does suggest that Ghost Rider is on the way, and the developers already knew this when designing the Kunlun map and preparing these 1 million BC Avengers skins to be released in the future of Marvel Rivals. Now, which iteration of Ghost Rider we get in Marvel Rivals is still up for debate. We could get the classic Johnny Blaze, flying into Marvel Rivals on a motorcycle. But there is a chance that we actually see the latest host of the Spirit of Vengeance, which is Parker Robbins, known as the Hood, who took the mantle in 2024 as the new Ghost Rider, who also harnesses power from Dormammu through the accursed cloak, and can even turn into his demon form. Whichever version of Ghost Rider we see in the game, I think he's almost certainly coming, and one day we will see this iconic Ghost skin as a cosmetic in-game. Now, next up on the list, I think you'll all agree that in Marvel Rivals, the Guardians of the Galaxy just isn't quite complete, and one of the members that is missing is Drax. But don't worry, because Marvel Rivals has addressed the absence of Drax in a few teasers, one of them appearing in Season 5, because Mantis got a new accessory, which is a Drax plush, where we can see Drax playing the saxophone. And the description of her accessory talks about Drax and Arthur Douglas, and alludes to his whereabouts, asking where exactly did Drax wander off to. And over on the Tokyo 2099 map, a poster can be seen advertising Douglas's Jazz Night, a reference to Arthur Douglas, who was a jazz musician before his soul was resurrected as Drax the Destroyer. And it's unclear as to the true nature of Arthur Douglas and Drax during the time stream entanglement in Marvel Rivals. Is Arthur Douglas still out there? Is there another version of Drax wandering the time stream? Things get a little bit confusing, but one thing is for sure, the Guardians aren't going to stop looking for their missing friend. And Star-Lord mentions this in a voice line with Black Panther.
You ever see Gamora or Drax out there in your empire?
I am afraid not.
I gotta find them. They're the closest thing I have to family.
And Drax would make for a perfect Vanguard to fit in the Guardians of the Galaxy, who currently only have just one Vanguard. So maybe we get a season themed around Thanos and Drax shows up for revenge. Or maybe he's already in the game, but he's just standing very still and we haven't noticed him yet. And while we're on the topic, that voice line you heard right there is pretty much the only mention of Gamora in Marvel Rivals. So if we see Drax join the game, I think we'll see Gamora around the same time. Like I said, it would all be great for a Thanos-themed season. Now, the next hero that Marvel Rivals already teased as playing a very close role in aiding the heroes back in Season 2 is Forge. Now, Forge is a mutant born with the innate gift to fully understand the intricacies of any machine and technology. Ideas of new inventions and unfathomable machines just pop into his brain as second nature. It's as natural as breathing for him. So this mechanical genius allows him to invent advanced technology for literally any purpose. He was also trained in the mystic arts, allowing him to create weapons, healing technology, gadgets, literally anything you can imagine Forge can create. And he comes to the aid of the other heroes on Krakoa in Season 2. He helps Emma Frost by fixing parts of the damaged Cerebro in order to help the the X-Men search for other mutants lost across the time stream. So that places Forge on Krakoa in Season 2, meaning he's in the Marvel Rivals universe and he's tangled right up in the lore, meaning we could certainly see him as a playable hero very soon. He'd make for a great strategist, creating different devices to heal, protect, or damage boost his teammates. And speaking of searching for lost mutants in the time stream, the next hero we have to talk about is Cyclops. Because Cyclops is one of the most blatantly, obviously teased heroes coming to Marvel Rivals after the Season 5 trailer, where we finally got to see him and what he might look like in the Marvel Rivals style. But we'll get to his appearance in the trailer after we talk about his first mention in Jean Grey's lore story. So when Phoenix was added to the game, if you read through her lore story, you would find out that in the present timeline, she had left Krakoa to travel the galaxy, sharing the Phoenix's spark of creation with worlds in need. And at first, during this adventure, she had maintained a telepathic connection with Scott Summers, but that bond was severed during the time stream entanglement. And after the events of the time stream entanglement, she eventually heard Magneto calling to her using the Cerebro from Krakoa, which had been dragged into the future to the year 2099. Now, Jean was able to then use her mental powers to find Emma, Magic, Logan, and other mutants back on Krakoa. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't seem to find Scott. And here she vowed to find out where he was and wasn't willing to waste another second. Now, unfortunately, she got interrupted with the events on Clintar, but this shows that Scott Summers is lost in the time stream. But Phoenix is determined to find him, and that's why I don't think it's going to be long before we finally get Cyclops in the game. Now let's talk about the Season 5 trailer, because this takes place on the present timeline before Krakoa got dragged to the year 2099, and Cyclops was spotted attending Gambit and Rogue's wedding, looking very dapper in this suit. But during the temporal storm that sent Krakoa into the year 2099, we can see him being swept away, and this is the point where he vanished. So it's only a matter of time before we finally find him. And what are the reasons that Scott Summers in particular has gone missing while the other mutants were still on Krakoa? I don't know right now, but I'm excited for this lore to develop. Now, Cyclops is also mentioned in the Marvel Zombies mode, though this is likely just a nod to the Marvel Zombies MCU storyline for the crossover. But in Magic's description, it says after the fall of Krakoa, Ilyana Rasputin, obeying Cyclops' order, exiled herself to Limbo. Years later, a rumor of the Queen of the Dead's return draws her back to Earth, seeking revenge. So this is the Marvel Zombies spin-off universe, and I don't think is directly related to the Marvel Rivals universe, but it's cool that Cyclops was mentioned, and he likely ordered Magic to leave in order to protect her from the zombie virus. Moving on to the next teased hero, and this one is pretty exciting to me because I'd love a character like this in the game, and that is if you take a look in the background of this Season 5 gallery card, where we can see the Collector in his menagerie on his theme park. In the background on the CCTV cameras, we can see trapped in one of the glass cages a silhouette of Devil Dinosaur. Now, Devil Dinosaur first appeared in the 1978 Devil Dinosaur comics, and he originates from a prehistoric reality called Dinosaur World. As a young dinosaur, he was attacked by the Killer Folk, which triggered a mutation that gave him far greater strength, durability, and intelligence. After being rescued by Moon Boy, they formed a long partnership, with Devil Dinosaur acting as both guardian and ally. But in more recent continuity, after the death of Moon Boy, Devil Dinosaur became paired with Lunella Lafayette, Moon Girl, a child prodigy often described as the smartest human in the Marvel Universe. She designs advanced gadgets, weapons, and mobility tech, focusing on planning and inventions when up against their foes, which works in contrast with Devil Dinosaur's brute force approach. She also develops an occasional mind swap ability with Devil Dinosaur, causing their consciousnesses to switch bodies under intense stress. So I think it will be really awesome for a character like a giant Devil Dinosaur to come to Marvel Rivals, and since he's currently trapped in the Collector's theme park, imagine if Moon Girl is already planning to set him free. It would be a cool storyline, and having Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur come to the game a bit like Penny Parker, where Devil Dinosaur is the main character that you stomp around as a huge vanguard with, but the abilities combined with that of Moon Girl, using crazy gadgets and technology. Also, in the older comics, Devil Dinosaur did spend a short period in the Savage Land, one of the few places in the Marvel universe where a creature like him can naturally survive. And there were leaks that Savage Land is an upcoming map in the future of Marvel Rivals, so giving us Devil Dinosaur at the same time as the Savage Land map would actually work really well. And I think we need more creature characters in Marvel Rivals. I mean, who doesn't love Jeff the Landshark? Up next is a hero that's been teased for quite a while, and it's about time she joined the roster. And that is Jubilation Lee, or better known as Jubilee. A mutant with the power to create explosive firework energy bursts that range from bright flashes to concussive blasts. And there is a major plot point surrounding Jubilee that was introduced in Season 2 of Marvel Rivals. On the Krakoa map, you can see a purple dragon sitting above the main objective. And this dragon is Shogo Lee, who is Jubilee's adopted son after she rescued the abandoned baby. And Shogo has the ability to transform into a dragon. And in a Season 2 gallery card during the Hellfire Gala, we get more information about Jubilee, because Emma Frost is giving reporter Betty Brandt a tour around Krakoa, where she notices Shogo the dragon. And Emma Frost tells Betty that his name is Shogo and he misses his mother, who was lost to the time stream entanglement. Poor baby. So it's confirmed here that Jubilee is lost somewhere in the time stream after the time stream entanglement. But what's interesting is, in the Marvel Rivals Infinity comics, it takes us through the Ultron invasion on Krakoa during Season 2 of Marvel Rivals, and we can see all the heroes attending the Hellfire Gala, and in the comics, we can actually see Jubilee here talking to Penny Parker and Thor. And this is Jubilee. She's wearing the identical Hellfire Gala outfit she's worn before, which does make things a little bit confusing, because the Marvel Rivals comics tell the same story as the Marvel Rivals games, but I guess there's certain areas where things get a little muddled up. I think it's safe to say that Jubilee is lost in the time stream, but hopefully soon Shogo gets reunited with his mother, because she'd be an awesome hero. Now, it's safe to say Marvel Rivals has its fair share of X-Men characters, which is all the more reason for them to finally add the true leader, the founder of the X-Men, Charles Xavier. And don't worry, because Professor X has already been teased in Marvel Rivals throughout the lore. So the Marvel Rivals Krakoa storyline draws parallels from the Krakoa era of the comics, as they have the Resurrection Protocol and the Quiet Council, albeit the only remaining members after the time stream entanglement are Emma Frost, Magneto, and Storm. The other members are lost to the time stream, and that includes Professor X. Because if we look at Storm's first lore story, immediately after the temporal storm on Krakoa, she gathers some chronal energy crystals and says Xavier needs to hear about this immediately. Magneto as well, although Storm decided on the spot that Xavier should be the first to know. But where was he? Here on Krakoa? Or elsewhere in this world? Was it a new world or a new time? Or had she misunderstood the nature of the storm? Of course, now we know that Krakoa was dragged into the future to 2099. But in all the chaos, Professor X has gone missing. Luckily for us though, we have a good idea of what Professor X will look like when he becomes a playable hero, because there's a statue of him on the Krakoa map. As you can see, it has a heavy resemblance to the Krakoan era Professor X, and he's wearing a Cerebro. And this model looks so much like a playable version of Professor X, it makes me even more excited for his eventual release. But for now, in Marvel Rivals, Professor X seems to be meddling from afar. Because in Magneto's second lore story, where he's infected with the Ultron virus, he finds himself at the foot of the Charles Xavier statue. And losing hope, he looks at the statue and says, "Charles, is this how the dream dies?" No. A familiar voice responded inside of Magneto's brain. Not like this. Not today. Magneto didn't know if he was hallucinating or actually communicating with his long-lost friend, but it didn't matter. Hearing Charles's voice in his head once more gave him the strength he needed. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm pretty sure this was Charles Xavier using his telepathic abilities to help his friend Magneto to fight against the Ultron virus. So maybe Professor X doesn't join the game for a while, and instead he helps the X-Men from wherever he's found himself. But I know for sure he'll eventually come to the game, and I cannot wait for that. Next up, we have the longtime ally and attendant of Doctor Strange, serving as both a skilled practitioner of the mystic arts and a protector of the Sanctum Sanctorum. It's of course Wong, who we can see a portrait of in the Sanctum Sanctorum map. But not only is he seen in this painting, he's also mentioned in Doctor Strange's first lore story. After a mysterious visitor shows up at the Sanctum Sanctorum, Doctor Strange asks Wong, "Do get the door please, we mustn't keep our guests waiting." Only for Bats the dog to reply, "Wong's out on a supply run." Talk about protector of the Sanctum Sanctorum, he conveniently leaves when chaos shows up at the door. But who knows, maybe Wong will show up again in the future. But I'm kind of hoping he's out on a supply run for just a little bit longer, because for our next teased character, I think it would be quite convenient if someone happens to steal an artifact from the Sanctum Sanctorum. Because next up, we're going to be talking about Juggernaut. As also on the Sanctum Sanctorum map, there is a glass case holding a crimson gem that looks very similar to the Crimson Gem of Cyttorak, the source of Juggernaut's power. Now, there's no other references of Juggernaut in Marvel Rivals, so there's no telling whether or not Cain Marko has already transformed into Juggernaut. But with the Crimson Gem being in Marvel Rivals, there's a potential storyline there, and I wouldn't mind if someone broke in and stole the Crimson Gem, because I need the Unstoppable Force to be playable. His face-offs with the Thing and Hulk will just be legendary. There is one more slight reference to Juggernaut in Marvel Rivals, and that is the latest team up between Doctor Strange and Magic, the Chains of Cyttorak. Now, these most likely resemble the Crimson Bands of Cyttorak, a powerful spell that taps into the power of Cyttorak to bind your enemies. And in Magic's timeline, Doctor Strange was teaching her how to tap into the power of Cyttorak before he died, and then the Marvel Rivals Doctor Strange decided to finish the job and teach Magic the rest of the spell. So let's keep our fingers crossed for Juggernaut. Our next teased hero is an interesting one, because Marvel Rivals deleted all evidence of them very early on in Season 1. And that's one of the fan-favorite Spider-Man villains, Dr. Kurt Connors, the Lizard, a brilliant biologist whose life became fractured after using a reptilian DNA-based serum in an effort to regrow his arm, transforming him into the Lizard, a more primal identity that often overrides his mind and targets humanity. And back in Season 0, Iron Man's first lore story, Universal Rules, actually had a mention of the Lizard because it shared that Kurt Connors was Tony's lead bio-researcher who helped work on a serum to cure the vampires during the Eternal Night in New York. And he has a brief interaction with Tony in the story where he seemed reluctant to give 4 patients the serum because he had anxieties over his own history with serums. And while the interaction was brief, it gave us some context to place Kurt Connors in the Marvel Rivals universe. And since he has existing trauma with serums, I wonder if he has the Lizard under control or if it's still an ongoing battle. But in Season 1, this lore story was completely changed, removing any evidence of Kurt Connors in the Marvel Rivals lore. So was the original story still canon? Did the developers change it so they could write a new story for the Lizard when he comes to the game? All of this we'll have to wait for, but I would love the Lizard to be in the game. I think he could be such a diverse character, potentially a duelist like Mr. Fantastic, switching between 2 forms, or even a strategist who uses his advanced knowledge in biochemistry to aid his teammates, but still has the potential to ruffle a few feathers as the Lizard. So I do hope Kurt Connors pops up again soon. This next hero couldn't join the game quick enough. The mutant speedster and older twin brother of Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, has made few appearances in Marvel Rivals, with the most recent one being Scarlet Witch's new accessory, the Quicksilver plush. Its description potentially foreshadows his arrival to the game, because Galacta says she believes that one day he will race across stars and dimensions to be by Wanda's side. And Hawkeye seems to share the same enthusiasm about Quicksilver's return, because in a voice line interaction between Clint and Wanda, we learn more about Pietro Maximoff.
If only Pietro were here to share in the moment. But in my timeline, he is gone.
Hey, if anyone could outrun the end of all that is, Wanda, it's your brother.
I pray that you are right, Clint, because right now, I could use him more than ever.
So in Wanda's reality, the collapsing timeline, it seems Pietro has gone, which isn't a surprise because the collapsing timeline is barely being held together by the Sorceress Supreme, the Scarlet Witch, who uses her powerful chaos magic to hold together the magical seams of her world and keep the time stream itself from unraveling. Here, the fabric of reality is constantly being ripped apart and stitched back together. Most heroes are dead and many worlds have been destroyed. Both Angela and Daredevil also come from this devastated timeline, so it's very possible that Quicksilver has also fallen in Wanda's timeline. However, Hawkeye believes that he's capable of surviving, but it might not be Quicksilver from the collapsing timeline that joins Marvel Rivals in the future, because we already know that he exists in the 2099 timeline. On the Shin Shibuya map, a poster can be seen advertising Quicksilver sneakers, with a silhouette showing Pietro in the background. So the mutant twins could be reunited, and I'd love for 2099 Quicksilver to join the roster. And while I do think Quicksilver would be a unique duelist in Marvel Rivals, the potential for him to become a strategist would be awesome as well. Imagine an ability where you can select your teammate and for a few seconds, you make them invulnerable to incoming damage as he uses his super speed to deflect oncoming projectiles. However he comes to the game, I know he's going to be an awesome addition. Now, there are still so many more teased heroes in Marvel Rivals, some extremely subtle and others blaringly obvious. But that's where we're going to wrap up this video, and I will definitely be doing a part 2 of this, so let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that, and who do you hope gets added to Marvel Rivals in 2026? That's all for now, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.